1470.
Talk 1470.
WNN. The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. Welcome to the People's Advocate Hour with South Florida attorney Joseph Bryan. Listen for the next hour as attorney Joseph Bryan informs you on different legal topics. Whether you are considering bankruptcy or dealing with mortgage or debt issues, Joe can help you. Knowledge is power. Don't fear the unknown. Get answers to your burning legal questions now. So call in and ask attorney Joseph Bryan to answer your questions. 888-565-1470. And now, here's attorney Joseph Bryan.
Well, thank you for calling in today. I've got a few questions going on out there. I had this young lady who sent me an email indicating that she hasn't paid her taxes for 3 years, and she wants to know if she can get in trouble for that. Yes, she can get into trouble for that. You have to pay your taxes every year. You're supposed to file. There are exemptions to filing, but based upon the fact that she thinks that she was making an average gross of about $50,000, and she's an independent contractor, she has a lot of taxes due. You got to assume that at $50,000, she's paying at least 23% or 22% of her income in taxes, so in the self-employment tax. So she's looking at about $45,000 in tax exposure, plus the fines and the late fees and the interest accruing. What she can do is that she can approach a professional, like a tax consultant, a tax attorney, and put together an idea of what to do if she doesn't have the cash in hand, which appears that was the other part of her statement, was that she doesn't have any money. She has nothing to show for the money that she made. God, I know that feeling. I'm sure you all do. So the reality is that she's got to come up with a plan. She doesn't want the IRS to come a-knocking. Then there's another person who contacts, Sarah. She indicated that her bank account had been pilfered, is the words that she used, by the IRS. And she says, can they do that? And I said, well, unless you are not the person that they should be taking the money from, yes, they can. Now, if that was somebody else they were going after and they thought that the money belonged to them, yes, Sarah can go back and get the money back. But if it's her and it's her tax liability, the IRS can take cars, can take houses, can take bank accounts, can take retirement funds. They can liquidate IRAs. They can liquidate your 401ks. They're entitled to be paid. Keep that in mind if you're dealing with the IRS, that you always want to get a good consultant to sit with you and review the situation. Sometimes it's not enough money to make it worth your while to pay a professional. You know, if you're coming to somebody for a $5,000 or $8,000 problem with the IRS, odds are that there's no cost benefit associated with doing that. But once again, keep this in mind, and we'll talk again about this issue. Anyways, so I've been talking to a lot of attorneys, and it appears that the foreclosure market is slowly but surely becoming fewer and fewer filings as things are going on. Fewer people are doing what's called the intentional default, because they're upside down on the property. A lot of it has to do with the fact that the properties have come back up in price. In some cases, they're not so far down that it makes sense that they should want to walk away from a debt. So there's fewer and fewer foreclosures going on, and fewer bankruptcies. So the stats indicate that people are hurting a little bit less than they were this time last year. I guess that's a good thing for our people. However, taxes did go up in January, and we can expect after this next election coming up that taxes will go up again because they are scheduled to. Anyways, this is the People's Advocate Hour. If you have any specific questions to do with your debt situation, whether it be a mortgage upside down, a HELOC, which is a home equity line of credit, or you're dealing with a lot of credit card debt, or you're finding yourself working for your business and your business is not working for you, you're not able to pay your own personal bills, everybody gets paid on the job, but you, the owner of the company, are not paying yourself, it's time to reevaluate your circumstances and make some intelligent decisions for the future. Anyways, so how are people enjoying that lovely car ride today? I was hearing how the traffic was nice Turns out that traffic was not nice coming out of Fort Lauderdale and the Miami area. Lots of small little accidents to the roadsides. And of course, everybody wants to slow down and take a look. Hurry up, folks. Move it on. Move it on. Anyways. All right, well, this is the People's Advocate Hour. If you want to call in for questions, the number is 888-565-1470. And we're streaming on WNN1470.com. As you see tonight, my cohort is stuck in traffic coming here, so it's just you and I talking about the different issues that are interesting to you. Anyways, so let's just talk about something that one should consider when they have a property that is worth less than they owe. And a lot of people have second mortgages that have no support to them because they own the property and the first mortgage is pretty much collateralized, but the second mortgage has no collateral in the house because the house is worth less than they're owed. What does that mean? It means, like, say you have a house that you paid $400,000 on, and you had a $350,000 mortgage, and now the property's worth $290,000, so you're $60,000 upside down, about 20%. And that's pretty much common here in Broward at this point in time, being about 20% upside down. And when you're making the decision whether or not to consider walking away from these debts, there's a lot of things that you should take into consideration. First of all, what is your long-term goals? Just because you're upside down in a property doesn't mean you should sell it. If it's not an investment property and you're living there and you have a long-term goal of living there for 10 or 20 years, then this current situation of being upside down is a temporary thing. There is only so many pieces of property in Broward County that you can live in. There's building can't go past certain places along 27, so we're pretty much built out here in Broward. So there's a limited supply, and the demand will ultimately outstrip the supply. So therefore, the prices should continue to go up over the next 10 or 20 years. So if you're looking to stick in the property 10 or 20 years, or it's an investment property and you're holding it with the idea of holding it for 10 to 20 years versus this flip idea that caused the economy to go in the pits, then you should probably consider keeping the property and trying to do some sort of workout with the bank. In the situation of a residential property, you're going to consider a loan modification. And that's going to be based upon your income. They're looking that 30% of your disposable income can be applied to maintaining the property and paying the principal and interest. So if your debt to income situation doesn't work out for them, there's no loan modification available for you. Sometimes there are specialty programs within the banks where they will wipe off some of the principal. It does happen. I see a lot more than principal reductions. I see more often, I find that people are getting what's called deferred principal. What that means is that they don't charge interest on a certain amount of the principal, and they hold it out until you sell the property or till the end of the mortgage when you pay off that additional principal. Some situations also include where they forgive that principal. If you are current on your payments for several years, they're able to waive that deferred principal interest. But a loan modification is always the first thing. But if you're not looking to keep the property, or you don't have long-term plans, or you've got liens on the property that expose it to creditors, considering it's maybe an investment property versus your homestead, which is exempt, then you should consider a short sale. And what happens is the bank looks at your income. If you're sitting on a few $1 million in the bank, they're less likely to be agreeable to give you a short sale than somebody who's making it you take the cash in and it goes out. If you're hand to mouth, then odds are the banks will agree. In most cases here in Florida so far, almost all the banks are considering and often agreeing to waiving their right to pursue any deficiency that may exist. These are all very interesting things that you must consider when doing a short sale. It's important that you sit down with an advocate, with an attorney, with somebody that has a very clear understanding of the marketplace. A lot of different real estate agents also are very educated and know what they're doing, but some only have half the story or are only concerned with making their commission, and they don't necessarily see the possible downfalls for you and your family. So it's always best to go to an attorney and get a good input. There's lots of qualified attorneys here in Broward and Dade and Palm Beach County, I being one of them. My name is Joseph Bryan. I'm the People's Advocate, and we're streaming on WNN1470.com. If you have any questions, feel free to give us a call at 888-565-1470. And if you want to get a call into our offices for a free consultation, our phone number is 954-320-6940. Once again, this is the People's Advocate. Anyways, we'll talk to you again shortly. Mm-hmm.
Are you losing sleep at night due to your debt situation? Call attorney Joseph Bryan today to sit down for a free consultation to discuss your rights. The People's Advocate is the trade name of the Bryan Law Group. The People's Advocate provides services to individuals and small businesses in bankruptcy, foreclosure, short sales, loan modifications, debt relief, consumer law, and estate planning in the South Florida area. Your initial consultation is free of charge. Proudly serving the South Florida community for over 21 years, Attorney Joseph Bryan will listen to your concerns and discuss options available to you. For more information, please call the People's Advocate at 888-828-9008. That's 888-828-9008. You are listening to the People's Advocate Hour with South Florida attorney Joseph Bryan. He keeps you informed about your rights when it comes to bankruptcy or foreclosure and wants you to be part of his show. Call 888-565-1470 and help him help you get informed. Now, back to our show.
Okay. Hey, well, thank you for listening today. This is the People's Advocate Hour. This is Attorney Joe Bryan, and if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call in at 888-565-1470. We're streaming on WNN1470.com. And once again, if you have any questions, give us a call. You can also contact us on the Facebook or the other or Twitter and set your questions there. We were just talking about short sales, and short sales is a great way to get rid of the property that you have. When you have an unpaid balance after you sell the property, often the banks will waive your deficiency. What are some of the benefits of that? Well, it's good to get rid of a property that you don't really have any long-term goals with when you're upside down and the banks waive the deficiency. There is a concern associated with that deficiency waiver. When they waive the right to pursue that deficiency, they may or may not decide to go do a forgiveness of debt. If they do a forgiveness of debt, they are required by the IRS to issue a 1099. And if that 1099 is issued and it's not homestead property, then at that point in time you could be liable for capital gains or actually normal income on the forgiveness of debt. So if you're paying 18% income on your income and taxes, that's what it'll be. If you're paying 21, 26, 28, 32, 34, and up, you can find yourself paying higher taxes depending on how much you owe on a general basis. The other thing is that as of right now, they haven't reinstated the law for the forgiveness on homestead obligations on a 1099. Homestead being the place that you live, your primary place of residence. If you were to get a 1099 issued for last year, you wouldn't have to pay any of the general income on that 1099. It's unfortunate that law hasn't been reinstated yet, but it won't become an issue to you till next April, on April the 15th, 2015. Hopefully by that point in time, considering being election year and all that, I suspect that we'll probably find that the federal government has decided to agree on something and will extend the law another year or two. But I don't expect them to continue to do that forgiveness because the federal government wants to make income in the form of taxes. And at some point in time, this foreclosure debacle that we've gone ourselves through will no longer be a pressing issue for the courts and for the federal government. Anyways, so let's just talk to you about some of the good news. Once again, there's something the federal government did do right, that basically there's a thing called Regulation X, which covers a lot of different things, and there are bank laws that have been imposed. And now if you are in foreclosure and you have a modification being considered, or you have a short sale being considered, or you have some other loss mitigation program represented by the bank, what will happen is that the bank won't be allowed to continue to move forward on the foreclosure action while they're considering a loss mitigation. As long as the application is complete, they can't go forward to get a summary judgment. They can't go forward to get a trial. As a consequence, that is because of the Regulation X, preventing them from going on a dual track. Something that I've been talking about since 2007, 2008, saying it was unfair for the bank to move forward on a foreclosure action if they were considering a client for loan modification. Of course, several years ago, it was not uncommon for me to have a loan modification package being processed for more than 2 years. The bank's keeping asking for the same information updated. I just think that they were so overwhelmed back then, and they didn't understand what they were doing or why they were doing it. And so they're just trying to push it down the line and hold on and hold on. I just think that that's fine. They wanted to hold on. They just shouldn't have foreclosed on people and pushed them out of their houses. I saw so many cases where the loan modifications were still going on. The judgments went through. A sale date came up, and the judges, in retrospect, recognized that the value of equity, and they did what they could to contradict the equity, and they did what they could. Once again, that's a new thing that's happened in the world, and I thought it was very exciting. I thought I would share that with you. And what else is going on? Okay, so let's just talk about other options for those that are currently dealing with debts that are coming due. I know a lot of you people out there are paying a lot of credit card debt. One of the numbers I saw was the United States is in about $66 trillion worth of consumer debt. And that a good many of households have already defaulted on their credit cards. Some of these credit cards debts have been sold on to factoring companies and to other companies that are collection companies, buying them at a discount. Anyways, looks like I got an incoming phone call. So let's hear what the question is today. Hello, I can't hear you.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Oh, I can. How's it going today?
Good. I was just listening, and I was wondering, I understand a lot of the banks are buying foreclosures. Now, if as just like a regular person, if I wanted to invest in a foreclosure myself, how would I do that? How would I take action on that and reap any kind of benefits? Or are there benefits for people like me to invest in foreclosures, or should I just, is that strictly just for banks?
Well, no. I mean, if you're looking to buy a foreclosure, you have the option of going to the auction itself. You generally have to put a certain percentage about how much money you wanted to put into the program. Say you wanted to go and you wanted to buy a property for $150,000. Well, you'd have to put down a certain percentage, whether it be Miami-Dade or Broward, so that you'd be allowed to play the auction to that $150,000 that you had to play with. Some cases, you're not in the case where you can make the investment by yourself, and you might want to contact some of the RIAs, Real Estate Investment Associations. The RIAs have other investors that you can join in with. They have mentoring programs that you can join with, that you can get some insight and see how to get involved. It just comes down to how much money you have to invest into a foreclosure. Generally speaking, you're not in a position to have the traditional financing available to you. You're not able to just have a pre-approved and then you have 30 days to close on the property. You kind of have to go to the auction and you have to pay cash. So, so foreclosures is definitely an option, but it's one of those things that there's lots of things that can cause you trouble. Would you like to hear some of the issues?
Yeah, like what kind of homework would I need to do before?
Well, you got to look at who's doing the foreclosing. Is it the first mortgage? Is it the second mortgage? So you kind of almost have to do a bit of a title search on your own, or you can use the services for a couple $100 of a title company. But you really need to look at the property and find out what's attached to that property. And then once you find out who owns the property, you first have to find out whether it's a first or second mortgage. Because if it's a second mortgage, they're foreclosing subject to the first mortgage. Secondly, if they're foreclosing subject to an association, and the association may have some fees outstanding when it comes to the property, and you need to be aware that they've been properly foreclosed upon. Otherwise, you could find yourself being liable for back association fees. And then the other things that you got to be concerned about is the individual. If this is homestead, well, the property is exempt from a lot of the creditors out there, but it won't be exempt from the IRS. And so if the individual owner has an IRS lien, you can end up finding yourself buying the property and not having if the IRS lien has not been wiped out in that foreclosure, then you could find yourself taking the property subject to that lien. So there's a lot of lien search stuff that you need to be aware of. And then, of course, who's doing the foreclosing. And a lot of this information, you can actually contact the owner of the property. Quite candidly, a lot of the properties that are going for foreclosure and they're on the auction steps often get pulled off at the last moment due to some other things. And the other choice is also to contact a realtor. Because they're going to do a lot of the footwork for you. They're going to take you to give you lists of properties to look at. And quite candidly, when you're buying a property in short sale that's in foreclosure, you have once again the opportunity to have a lien search done before you close on it. So you should at least be aware of any outstanding things that may show up against the property.
Okay.
And then if you're going to buy it straight at on foreclosure, it is buyer beware. That means that if you don't do all those things, you could find yourself taking a property with all sorts of different title issues. And that's a matter of fact, after you buy a property at auction, it's in your best interest actually to pay for title insurance so that you could see if there's any things out there. So as a first-timer, I would suggest you associate with one of those real estate investment associations. There's the Broward Real Estate Association, there's the Dade Real Estate Association, and there's several other real estate investment clubs in the area where you can get all that expertise that you don't personally have, but you can get it from other people with experience. Or better yet, if you're looking for investment purposes, you can join with somebody else and not take all the risk.
Well, that's all really great information. Thank you.
You're welcome, and you have a wonderful day. This is the People's Advocate Hour. So, anyways, thank you so much. Once again, this is the People's Advocate Hour. If you have any questions, feel free to give us a call in at 888-565-1470. We're streaming on WNN1470.com. This is Attorney Joseph Bryan speaking during the People's Advocate Hour. If you want to come into our offices for a free consultation, please feel free to give us a call at 954-320-6940. So let's talk about debt. That sounded like somebody who had some investment money. Sounds like a nice person. Sounds like they've got money to invest. Gotta like that. But some people out there are tapped out and finding themselves in all sorts of credit card debt. Understand that there's lots of things to be keeping in mind. I had somebody come into my office the other day, and they were talking about all this debt that they had. I mean, we're talking about $65,000 worth of credit card debt, and a couple cars that were repoed because he couldn't make the payments a few years back. Actually, not a few years back, several years back. And I started asking him the question, and I said, well, when did you get in default? And he was looking at the schedule, and he couldn't really. I said, well, when was the last time you made a payment on account for any of these things? And it turned out that he hadn't made a payment on any of these credit cards for more than 5 years. And the repos, when he looked at it, he didn't realize it. He said, that was in 2009 in January that they repoed those two cars, the one he had been paying for his girlfriend, his ex-girlfriend now, and the one that he was paying for himself, the nice pickup truck that was taken. And now he's just driving a small little Toyota pickup. He seems to be happy with it. It's got a little cubby cab in the back, so he's got lots of extra space. He's happy. It's paid for. It's all cash. But he was really worried about it because he was starting to make money. Well, when I looked at it, I realized that his defaults happened over 5 years ago. And the way it works is if they didn't file a lawsuit against you and initiate a case against you within that 5-year window, the statute of limitation has run. What that means is that they're no longer allowed to bring a lawsuit based upon that debt. Unless he'd made a payment during that 5 years, which would have started the tolling beginning again, he wasn't liable for anything. So he went back to his bank and he researched it. He actually pulled up the statements because he hadn't kept copies of them. And he reviewed it and he found out that in 4 out of the 6 things that he was concerned about, they were uncollectible. Told him that he needed to immediately write to the reporting agencies that these claims that are still on his credit report were no longer collectible and were prohibited by statute and uncollectible pursuant to statute of limitations, and advised the reporting agencies to remove the negative remark. Well, they removed it right away, and when it became apparent that he hadn't made a payment for over 5 years and they were uncollectible, they stayed off his credit report. His credit report and his credit score jumped almost 250 points. Understand me, his credit report was really bad, but it improved immediately. And the other 2, well, he was able to go out there and negotiate with them. And in one situation, it was about $15,000, and they were willing to take $5,600 over 6 months. And so he made a payment plan. The other one wasn't willing to settle, but they hadn't filed a lawsuit. So he waited, and then all of a sudden, the debt got sold. Contacted the new owner and offered that person 30 cents on the dollar. He ended up settling for 60 cents on the dollar. But once again, he was happy because all of his debts of the past had gone away. And without going to bankruptcy, he had a fresh start. Anyways, once again, this is the People's Advocate Hour. This is Attorney Joseph Bryan. And we're going to go to break in just a moment. And once again, if you want to call in, our phone number is 888-565-1470. I look forward to hearing from you. We're streaming on WNN1470.com.
Are you losing sleep at night due to your debt situation? Call Attorney Joseph Bryan today to sit down for a free consultation to discuss your rights. The People's Advocate is the trade name of the Bryan Law Group. The People's Advocate provides services to individuals and small businesses in bankruptcy, foreclosure, short sales, loan modifications, debt relief, consumer law, and estate planning in the South Florida area. Your initial consultation is free of charge. Proudly serving the South Florida community for over 21 years, Attorney Joseph Bryan will listen to your concerns and discuss options available to you. For more information, please call the People's Advocate at 888-828-9008. That's 888-828-9008. You are listening to the People's Advocate Hour with South Florida Attorney Joseph Bryan. He keeps you informed about your rights when it comes to bankruptcy or foreclosure and wants you to be part of his show. Call 888-565-1470 and help him help you get informed. Now, back to our show.
Hey there, thank you for calling the People's Advocate Hour. This is Joseph Bryan, and I'm finally sitting here across the way with
Attorney Lauren Smith. Hello, everyone.
So you were a little late today, young lady.
I was. The traffic is so bad, and I'm sure a lot of listeners right now can completely understand that.
I understand that you were stuck in a place called Aventura.
I sure was. The place is completely underwater. It's totally flooded. There's accidents everywhere. So please, everyone, drive carefully.
You drove carefully. That's why you were really late to see us today.
I know.
Did you notice the accident coming off? You know, we're just off of Hillsborough, just into Boca, just off of Hillsborough to the north. Of Hillsborough, just off of Dixie. Did you notice the 5-car accident?
I saw that.
And
I
how
hope
about,
everyone's okay.
you know, I saw people getting into accidents on the way up here. I watched them happen. I felt like I was like watching one of those TV shows, those cop shows with accidents happening.
I know, it's scary out there. Everyone be very careful. Break with enough time.
Do you know, statistically speaking, in Miami-Dade, something like 43% of the people on the road don't have insurance?
That's scary. I've heard those statistics. And
It's a scary thing that they're out there driving, hitting you. At least not always running, but there's a lot of uninsured motorists out there. Do you have a nice car? I bet you have uninsured motorist insurance, don't
I
you?
sure do.
I waived it, but you know, I have to reevaluate that decision, huh? So
Especially
listen,
after a day like today.
you know that something happened while you were not here. We were missing you because we had a question come in. Do you see the question over there in the paper? What was the question?
I do. So the question is, we got an email from one of our listeners who is planning on moving to the United States. He currently lives in Venezuela.
The home of Hugo. Well, actually, he's not there anymore. Who's the new guy in charge? Oh, I guess he's not that important because I don't remember. Okay, so they're coming from Venezuela.
That's right. He has some family here, and he visits the United States from time to time, and he's decided that he wants to actually move to the United States. So he sent us an email asking basically what are the steps that he should take before he moves to the United States in regard to any income that he may have, that he can, you know, make sure everything's wrapped up so he doesn't have any U.S. tax liability on, you know, his business in Venezuela. He wants to sell it. So to kind of answer your question, just to begin, I'm sure everyone knows out there, well, it's kind of unique. The United States actually taxes residents and citizens on their worldwide income. I'm not sure if everyone knows that out there because not all countries do that.
So if I'm making money in Switzerland, I'm going to be taxed.
That's right. If you are a U.S. resident or citizen, even if you're making the money in another country, it's completely disconnected from the United States. If you are a U.S. taxpayer, as it's known, you will have a tax liability on that income.
Does that include companies I own?
That's right, it does.
So basically, taxes and death, those are the only two guarantees I have.
That's right, only guarantees in life. Now, let me clarify, if it's a pass-through entity, like a partnership or an LLC, that income will flow through to you personally. Say it's a corporation. A corporation is subject to what's known as double taxation. So the corporate entity is a taxpayer in and of itself, and so is the shareholders. Now, there are some exceptions, though, where you can actually be taxed on the corporate income, even if you're not bringing it over to the U.S. So I'm not going to get too deep into it. That's something, if someone has an issue, they might want to call our office.
What number should they call?
That is
954-320-6940. We do give free consultations, and Lauren would sit down and go over your specific issues and discuss them with you and come up with a strategy and a plan of action.
That's right. But back to the question at hand. So basically, this gentleman wants to know, what can he do to make sure that he doesn't have U.S. tax liability in the years that in the year that he comes to the United States and thereafter. And I would say my best advice is, if you're going to sell a business in another country, do so before you come to the United States. Because if you do that, you will recognize the income in a year when you're not a U.S. taxpayer, meaning you will not have that U.S. tax liability. So he wants to sell his business in Venezuela. So I would say sell it now before you move to the United States and become a U.S. taxpayer. You'll recognize that income, but it won't be subject to U.S. tax liability because you're not a U.S. taxpayer.
Now, if I pay taxes in Venezuela and they amount to 60% of my income, or 66% because I make good money, I'm still going to have to pay taxes on what's left over?
The way that it works is, if you have to pay tax in both the U.S. and another country such as Venezuela, the U.S. will give you a tax credit up to the amount of your tax liability in the U.S.
So in other words, if I paid 60% on my income and I owe 32% here, I won't have to pay that 32% because they're going to recognize that I've already paid my tax full elsewhere.
Exactly. They will give you a credit. And there are treaties between certain countries as well that allow further tax benefits to U.S. taxpayers. So
the taxes in the United States, generally speaking, from your experience, actually tax in the United States is pretty low, huh?
It is, compared to a lot of other countries. And the real reason that the U.S. will give you this tax credit is they don't want to tax you on 100% of your income. That's not fair, and they recognize that.
Well, I'm glad that sooner or later the IRS seems fair. That's an exciting thing.
It is.
Guess what? They were waiting just for you. We have a call-in.
Oh my goodness, that's exciting as well.
Let's find out who's calling in today. Hello, this is Joe Bryan. Can I help you?
Hello, my name is Michelle. I live in Fort Lauderdale.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi, I have a question. Me and my husband are just separated, but I just found out that he's filing for bankruptcy.
Ouch.
And we're in foreclosure, so I'm not sure how that's going to affect me, if I should file for bankruptcy as well, or what I should do.
It's a good question. It
That
really
is a good
is.
question.
And the truth of the matter is, you got to be very careful because some of the family lawyers out there don't have the debt savviness, so you may end up having to consult with a secondary attorney. But the biggest thing to keep in mind is that if he's filing for bankruptcy, he's wiping out all of his liabilities. And in some cases, that may also include a tax liability for which all of these things you would be, if you're the liable person as well. You know, often did you sign a lot of stuff with your husband?
Well, yeah, we have some credit cards together, stuff we bought for the home when we first got the home together. So we definitely do have some debts together.
Well,
at this time.
and your divorce, you're just in the preliminary stages. You actually haven't filed for divorce?
We're not divorced yet, but it's definitely headed that way, especially with
Okay.
this experience. It's not helping. So I'm just wondering, I'm worried that I'm going to be stuck with all of his debt or things that we,
Well, Michelle, the
together.
truth of the matter is yes, you will. Anything that you've signed your name on the dotted line for, along with him, he's going to be, if he is able to get discharge in bankruptcy, he will be discharged from those debts, and you will be continued to be liable for them. But as in life and in marriage, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. And what that means to you, Michelle, is that since you haven't gone through the divorce yet, even though he's filing for bankruptcy, you could sit down at the mediation table and say, listen, there are a bunch of debts that I do not want to take responsibility for, that I want him to take responsibility for whatever reason. And as part of the divorce, even though he's no longer liable for those debts pursuant to the bankruptcy court, subsequently, as part of a marriage settlement agreement, he could be held liable in a marriage settlement agreement to indemnify you and hold you harmless. In other words, you could make him still be responsible for debts that he's got discharged with in bankruptcy through the divorce court, as long as you've got a competent divorce attorney who understands your goals and is attentive. You know, some attorneys are really wonderful. They pay a lot of attention to you, Michelle, and others just want to push through the paperwork and they don't give a hoot. And they're not paying attention to the details. So it's important that you choose somebody that's got their mind out of the clouds and into the details. Once again, it's important for you to keep in mind what your goals are. And since you're telling me he's getting ready to file for bankruptcy, you want to make sure that he's going to take responsibility for certain debts. Okay.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to pay for everything myself, that's for sure.
Well, you know that I had a client that came to me that I filed for bankruptcy, and there was a joint $400,000 tax bill on the family from a prior filing. I was able to get him discharged for those taxes, and his wife was stuck with the liability for paying the $400,000 in existing tax liability. She even tried to say, well, I'm an innocent spouse, and tried to get rid of the debt that way. However, the IRS didn't agree with her analysis, and so she was still stuck with the $400,000 worth of debt. And the reality is that she had good income, so filing for bankruptcy, either Chapter 7 or Chapter 13, didn't appear to be options for her. So she ended up, now if she had put something in the marriage settlement agreement that he was to hold her harmless for up to half of it, or she'd had something in the marriage settlement agreement that made it so he couldn't just walk away from it, discharge in bankruptcy is not discharge in marriage settlement agreements. You cannot get rid of liabilities that exist in a marriage settlement agreement. It's a court order. So
I've never heard of that, so I really thank you so much for that information.
You're welcome, Michelle, and you have a wonderful evening, and drive careful out there. A lot of crazy people on the road.
Oh, thank you. You too.
All righty then. Well, that was a very interesting subject.
It was, and we see that a lot, and especially in this day and age, a lot of couples are deciding to split up, and sometimes things can get sticky. You really need to make sure that you have a good attorney guiding you through the process.
And sometimes people are not getting married and living together in sin. This is not the evangelical hour. I think that people should live in sin as often as possible. But hey, now that we got beyond that little foolishness. But, sometimes you guys will get together and buy a house together. Even I've known a lot of girls who had good credit, been very safe about it. Their boyfriends have been nincompoops. You've heard that word before, nincompoops?
I have.
I know
a couple nincompoops.
Yeah, I don't think nincompoops. I don't think that's on the list of no words on the FCC. I think I'm allowed to use nincompoops, and I kind of like that word. A lot of kids don't know that one because it's not on like an MTV or on VH1 or whatever show they're watching. I've never seen it on Nickelodeon when I'm watching it with my nieces and nephews. So nincompoop.
Yeah.
I think it's a good word. But, the guys are basically no accounts that the father said you shouldn't be dating him. He's a no account. But, of course, daughters don't listen to fathers when they're in love. So they're still dating the nincompoop. And they go out and they take a car out in his name, take the debt on their name, no agreement between the two of them. So guess who's liable for the debt?
They both are, unfortunately. I had a client who went through a very similar situation. She decided to buy a property with her boyfriend at the time. This was right at the top of the real estate bubble,
So this foolish time to buy.
Absolutely foolish time to buy. Property prices were skyrocketing. They purchased this home together. About 2 years later, once, everything was completely crashing around us in the real estate market, they split up. And unfortunately, he would not leave the residence. She left. She said, you can keep it as long as you pay the bills, and he stopped paying.
You shocked?
I was not shocked at all, but unfortunately, my client did not have any sort of agreement with her boyfriend.
They should have had a property settlement agreement?
They should have.
They should have had something that was in writing that they could enforce against each other?
That's right. That's the advice I gave her. Unfortunately, it was too late for her.
Because all they could have done
was
was partition, and with the property being upside down, partition makes no sense.
That's right.
And the forced sale is not something that's going to be cheap to do.
No.
So her credit got destroyed.
It did, unfortunately.
And I bet you, just because I've heard this story before, I bet you, not your story specifically, but I've heard this story before. It's a common thing. I bet you he moved in with a new girlfriend.
He did.
Which
just added insult to injury for my client, but it was a good learning lesson for her.
But at least at the bright side, there is no going back.
That's right.
And I'm sure her father was happy that she got rid of that nincompoop.
He sure was. And then, you know what? My client actually ended up going to law school herself.
Wonderful.
The experience inspired her.
That's right. And from now on, I think that she'll have things in writing.
That's right. And like you always say, knowledge is power. And now she has that knowledge.
Yes, that is true. That is so true. I've watched people that are trusting, and trust is good. They say trust but verify. I like to say trust but put it in writing. Listen.
Such a lawyer.
I am. I don't do a prenuptial on a first date. All right. But it'd be nice, you could put these rules down, you agree to do the dishes. I agree to make dinner or pay for it. Anyways, weekly presents. I want a present every week.
There you go.
I'm putting up with her.
That could be a good idea.
I know. She's putting up with me, but of course I'm perfect, so there's nothing to worry about there. Haven't you heard that?
Yeah, from you.
It's always good to have a self-esteem problem, right? So listen. Did you hear that they're upset that about this little thing that happened recently? They gave up for, I guess, Burdall or something like that. This gentleman who has decided to leave the post, look for an English translator, find himself locked up with the Taliban for 5 years, and they released the worst of the worst.
I've read about this. It's an interesting story, and it's sparked a lot of controversy in the public, for sure.
Now, let me ask you a question, though. There was a law that said he had to give 30 days' notice to Congress before he released anybody from Guantanamo.
That's right.
He didn't give them any notice.
He didn't, and from my understanding, the argument of the president is it was an emergency situation. But my question is, why does it take 5 years for an emergency to arise? It seems
strange.
it does.
You know, I'm interested in as you know, as a people's advocate, I'm always looking at the world that we live in from the position of the people as a whole. I mean, it's probably, each one of them was probably $50,000, $80,000 a year to maintain them in their little environment. So 5 times 8, what's that? $400,000
Yeah.
So that's $400,000 savings a year for the average citizen. I just wish he would give it to people who needed it for daycare, but of course that's not the plan here today. So the People's Advocate Hour is about the People's Advocate. If you have questions or comments, if you want to get on the line and say, this is what I feel, we might take your call, depending on what you have to talk about. Sometimes, you're a little crazy. We might have to stop you, only because we might agree with you. But once again, if you have any questions, give us a call in at 888-565-1470. We're streaming on Wwnn1470.com. And we're going to go to a break in just a few moments. If you want to contact us, we give free consultations. These consultations are not about giving you a contract, but they're about reviewing your situation and discussing it and possibly coming up with options and strategies for your best interest. Our phone number is 954-320-6940. Give us a call if you're looking for a free consultation.
Are you losing sleep at night due to your debt situation? Call attorney Joseph Bryan today to sit down for a free consultation to discuss your rights. The People's Advocate is the trade name of the Bryan Law Group. The People's Advocate provides services to individuals and small businesses in bankruptcy, foreclosure, short sales, loan modifications, debt relief, consumer law, and estate planning in the South Florida area. Your initial consultation is free of charge. Proudly serving the South Florida community for over 21 years, Attorney Joseph Bryan will listen to your concerns and discuss options available to you. For more information, please call the People's Advocate at 888-828-9008. That's 888-828-9008. You are listening to the People's Advocate Hour with South Florida attorney Joseph Bryan. He keeps you informed about your rights when it comes to bankruptcy or foreclosure and wants you to be part of his show. Call 888-565-1470 and help him help you get informed. Now, back to our show.
Well, welcome back. This is Joseph Bryan.
And Lauren Smalis.
And we're here in the People's Advocate Hour. We're going to discuss debt issues, mortgages, credit card debt, foreclosure, bankruptcy, taxes. Yes, taxes. Did I scare you? How about I use the other word? IRS.
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, my goodness. So I heard you had an interesting call earlier today in reference to some tax issues.
I did, Joe, and it was actually one of the reasons I was late, not just the rain. My client meeting ran over because it was so interesting, and we were so excited about the results of her offer in compromise, which, if you've listened in past weeks, we've talked about them before.
What's an offer in compromise?
An offer in compromise is an agreement with the IRS that allows you to settle your tax debt for less than what you owe, which is a great thing.
So you settle a debt for less than you're owed. Does that mean you have to sell their kids to pay it off?
I don't know if the IRS would agree to that, but I've heard some crazy things the IRS has done before, so you never know.
I mean, I'm sure we can get a few $1,000s for a kidney in Belarus. I hear the going rate's very reasonable.
There you go. Hey, desperate times, right?
I don't get that. Not desperate, please. By the way, I understand selling body parts these days is illegal under very limited exceptions.
Ah, I can imagine.
So you can't sell your kidney, folks, even if you wanted to.
No.
At least not legally.
No, I wouldn't recommend that. Maybe talking to your attorney would be a better plan of attack for an IRS tax debt.
Excellent. And how much did they owe?
They owed quite a bit. They owed about $300,000.
Ouch.
Yeah, they had some issues with the business that they had sold, and the IRS had basically audited them, and we wrote off a pretty good offer and compromise. The facts were actually very favorable for the taxpayer, and we were able to reduce it quite a bit. She was quite happy. We were able to show that she just couldn't pay it. She had a very profitable business when the economy was booming, and now her life has changed quite a bit. She's living more modestly, and we were able to show that she really did not have the ability to pay the full tax.
So they believed you.
They did. We gave a very good argument to the IRS. We worked with them, and sometimes you win more, what's the old saying, more bees with honey than vinegar. We worked with the IRS agent, and we showed her the situation, and we were able to get a great result.
I have a client that's been working on an offer and compromise, and they are not making a quick decision on him. He's going on 3 years. They still have not accepted his offer nor rejected it. They're just holding him hostage.
Yeah, it can take a while.
I think they just want to see if he's going to make more money and if he's fibbing.
That's possible too. They do that as well, and they really have a lot of the power in their hands. It's the IRS. So
I think that they're mad at him because he basically had a lovely business making $24 million a year, and now he makes less than 40, and they just feel that he's just not living up to his potential. And sometimes the ultimate parent is the government.
That's right. Yeah.
What they call it? That's the theory of parent parentis. I'm your ultimate daddy. Unfortunately for us, though, generally speaking, we don't have to pay daddy back, but the IRS wants to be paid its cut no matter what.
That's right.
And it's important to take into consideration. Now, do you think that they could have pulled off this offer and compromise without some professional help?
I would highly advise against that. And
what do you think the chances of getting success when you're the point person on your own file?
I don't know too many people that have ever even attempted an offer and compromise on their own. For one thing, it just looks better when you have experienced counsel backing you up and talking to the IRS. And one of the things that I always tell clients, credibility, exactly. And one of the things I always tell clients is you are going to tell the IRS way more than you need to. You're emotionally involved in this situation, and you don't know the rules.
You don't know the consequence of your big mouth.
Exactly. And all too often, clients will start telling the IRS, I'm a good person, but they won't explain why. They won't give an argument based under the law. And that's really where your attorney comes in. They can take your facts, disclose the ones that are necessary and relevant, and make a good case for you.
Tell me, if the IRS is dissatisfied and they've found, and of course they know about all your assets, can they take them all?
They can.
Would they take my puppy?
I don't know about your puppy. That I think they have somewhat of a heart. They may not do that, but
what if I paid $1,800 for that designer puppy?
Then perhaps, or maybe the puppy bed.
Ooh, the puppy bed. I didn't buy any expensive puppy bed. Just a PetSmart little one for $20. No, listen, it's really important to get a good consultation with an attorney when you're dealing with issues, don't you think?
It is, especially something as sensitive as taxes. I mean, the money that you're going to save trying to do it yourself is absolutely not worth it, because at the end of the day, you need someone who knows the rules of the IRS, who will guide you through the process and help you relieve some of the stress that you're going through when you're dealing with tax and debt issues.
Excellent. We're running out of time today, so if anybody wants to give us a call on the next show, our number is 888-565-1470. We're always streaming on Wwnn1470.com. If you need a good consultation on some of your issues that you're dealing with, come on by. Give us a call at 954-320-6940. Lauren and I being Joe Bryan, are here to help you, to work with you on your problems. And Lauren, you like what you do. You seem to enjoy going to work.
I do.
Why?
I really enjoy it. I mean, not only is it challenging and exciting, and I know people laugh when they hear taxes are exciting, but it is. But not only that, I feel like I really am helping people. Going through a tax issue can be very stressful for people, and just knowing that there's someone there to counsel you and back you up and be, your talking person, it can really help people.
I have people come by my office all the time for the free consultation. And the free consultation can be available at 954-320-6940. But the nice thing about the free consultation is people who are sticking their heads in the sand, who are stressing about things that they feel they have no control of, They come in, they get information, they get knowledge,
That's right.
and knowledge is,
Power.
and with knowledge you can also be more confident in your decision making.
That's right.
You can come up with strategies to take care of the problems, and you can alleviate a lot of the unnecessary stress in your life by knowing what your status is, what the consequences of your status is, and what are your options, what are your strategies that you can employ.
Absolutely.
That's empowering, don't you think?
It is.
And that's what the purpose of the People's Advocate Hour is. If you have any questions, you're welcome to send emails to the Facebook page. You're welcome to call in or leave messages. And once again, this is the People's Advocate Hour. Easy for me to say, the People's Advocate Hour. And once again, before you go to the nincompoop and give him a credit card, before you go to nincompoop and get him a car, talk to a lawyer. Maybe you don't have to talk to Dad, right?
That's right.
You know what? If Dad is unhappy with his daughter doing things that he doesn't like, he could say, listen, call the guy in the People's Advocate Hour.
That's right.
Once again, we're the People's Advocate. Thank you for being here today. This is Joe Bryan.
And Lauren Smalis.
Stay safe on the road today. Watch out for the crazy drivers.
You have been listening to the People's Advocate Hour with attorney Joseph Bryan. Join attorney Joseph Bryan next week on the People's Advocate, as you need to know your rights when it comes to bankruptcy or foreclosure. You can also contact our office at 954-889-7443 for a free consultation. The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.